studying it because I thought this will never happen to me again. What I want to do is kind of talk through an analogy that I think will illustrate what this whole issue of book value and market premium and this stuff, and that is, I have an analogy. It's called Nyack the Eskimo. And Nyack, because I thought it was a city in Alaska, I've just decided that it's an Eskimo, and his name is, or her name, doesn't really matter, Pat, Sandy, Nyack, is an Eskimo. And in this case, Nyack went into the real estate business because unlike Nyack's friends, his other Eskimo friends, you could not sell snow to Eskimos. So he goes into the real estate business. And the question in the real estate business, to those of you who have underwritten a real estate loan, is how is real estate valued? Particularly commercial real estate. If I'm going to buy a piece of commercial real estate, what I want to know, if I'm an appraiser, for instance, because the thing that matters most to Wells Fargo is net stabilized income, right? We want to take income streams, and then we're going to discount them to come up with a principal value. So Nyack's going to go buy his first piece of real estate, and he's thinking about how much should I go to the bank and borrow, or let's just say there's no debt. He's got some money and has to decide how much he's going to pay for a building. So he approaches a piece of real estate, and it's throwing off $100,000 in net income. Now, he can earn a competitive rate of return of 10%, or we'll call that a cap rate in this example. So if he's got $100,000 this thing is throwing off in income, and the competitive rate of return is 10%, how much is that building worth? $1 million. You are well on your way to being securities analysts, believe me, because this is fundamentally what's going on under the hood. This is the bet that everyone is making. So you're already there. I mean, we could just about, thank you very much. There are evaluations on the table. Please fill them out. And, but in reality, I mean, I know it's a simple analogy, but it gets better if you'll stay with me for 1 second. Stocks aren't much different. In fact, you heard of the PE ratio? You know, when you look at a stock, it says PE and what's the value. And really what a PE is, it's price to earnings ratio. And so on this building, it's the price is how many times the earnings. So what's the PE of this building that Nyack's going to buy for $1 million? 10. That's good. I hope you stay with Wells Fargo when the investment banks start calling on you. So, I mean, I'm not completely crazy here. If you were going to buy the building for $1 million and you knew that the income was going to rise over time, you might sit back and say, you know what, I know the income's going to rise, so maybe it's worth more than $1 million. I might offer a little bit more because I know next year the income's going to be $110,000. So if you took that $110,000 into perpetuity, how much is that worth using our 10% discount rate? $1.1 million. So essentially what this whole slide says, to bring it to its simplest form, and it was never complicated in the beginning, it's just we like to load things with analyst speak to have everyone confused, you know, to have it look a lot more like a black box here. But what it's saying is, here's what we're throwing off right now. Therefore, that's impounded in the price of the stock. But Nyack's building is going to produce more and more income. So what the market has essentially done is he's going to buy that building for more than $1 million because he knows it's going to increase by $100,000 each year. You know, and there's only so long, so it gets discounted. So he buys the building maybe for $1.5 million in this example because he knows every year it's going up by $100,000. So it's going to be a good deal in the long run. That's where market premiums come from. It's the future expectation. It's the present value of future cash flows that are growing. If the cash flows were going to remain exactly flat of Wells Fargo, our stock, the value of our stock would be $12 billion. Adjusted for inflation, of course. You know, I mean, they'd have to go up enough at least so that it's not completely destroying value. But this is what it's all about. These are the expected cash flows discounted. This is what we're throwing off right now. And there you have it. Now, there's one difference. So our friend Nyack, now that we know how expectations factor into valuation in the form of a premium, plus how real estate's valued, which comes up with book value, there's this issue of shareholder value creation and management in a public company. Let's forget about Nyack, the individual, for a second, because he's done such a good job on that one building. He's just become CEO of Igloo Properties. And he works for you all. And you have that same scenario, which is you have a certain set of incomes. Nyack is the chairman, and we bought a building. We're publicly traded, so we all threw our money in. We bought this building, and we're the board. Nyack is our CEO. And we said, Nyack, here's the deal. We need a 10% rate of return because we just put up $1 million, and we need a 10% rate of return. How much does Nyack have to give us back each year, you know, in distributions in order for us to say he's not destroying the value of our investment? $100,000. You're on your way. Now, we sit around in the room and we think, geez, how can we get Nyack motivated to generate more income for us? Give them a percentage. In corporate America, those are called options. We say, well, okay, maybe we'll give NIAC some stock. We'll at least give them options to buy stock, and we'll give them some options to buy stock at $100 a share. The only problem with that is our stock is worth $100 today. So the question is, and that stock is based on that share price of $100 is based on the value of the building today, which is $1 million. So we give NIAC some options at $100. So right now the options are essentially worthless. What's NIAC going to want to do to make his options worth something? He's going to want that stock price to go higher. Sorry for zapping you with my laser pointer, Rick. I hope you're not blind. Can you edit that out of the video when he files his workman's comp claim? So he wants the stock price to go higher. How is he going to do it based on what we just described? You're so good. That's right. He's going to want to try and get the income of the building up. So he's going to try lots of different things. He's going to figure out, geez, I wonder if I can have half the people do the same amount of work and get the same amount of output. Well, okay, that's fine. Maybe he can do that. The only problem is if it's not a long-term strategy, because this company is publicly held and there are analysts valuing our stock, if they only do something that's going to last 1 quarter, no one's going to build a premium into it, because this is all about the future value of expected cash flows. So if you did it and you can only get the lift in 1 quarter, the stock wouldn't do anything. So you're absolutely right. What NIAC's goal to do is to figure out ways to get the income of that building to begin to rise, because then what the market's going to do is they're going to say, hey, this thing's throwing off more income than we thought it might. So all of a sudden they're going to start driving the value of that price up, of that stock, because the expected cash flows discounted back to the present are going to be a lot higher. So that's what drives up the stock price. It's that simple. So this whole thing about NIAC that we're going to talk about today is figuring out ways to generate more cash flow through our business. It's that simple. So let's talk about some shareholder-related events. You all have the handouts, and unfortunately you probably won't be able to read it real well here. So I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise here and take a look at this table. There's a lot going on. Dividends are being paid. The share price is changing. Thankfully, it's rising. We've bought back quite a few shares, issued some additional capital. Our book value has changed. And note that in '96 the numbers jump. Anyone remember what happened in 1996? First Interstate. Thank you. Don, you helped build this. You're not supposed to answer the questions. You got caught up in it. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Dividends, increases in market value, share repurchase are all positive events for the shareholder. They get cash. Additional capital issued, increases in book value, are costs to the shareholder in that they're giving up cash. So in this case, dividends, market value, and share repurchases are all going up, which is good, but so are capital issued and book value, which may or may not be so good. So what's going on? Do we have a sense of how the shareholder's doing? Anyone? Because if you can answer that question, since Ron just gave me the answer, so you might want to think about the answer. If you can answer that question, you get a prize, and there's another session this afternoon you're going to be teaching this session, because it's really difficult to tell from this slide. That's the moral of the story, what's going on with the shareholder. In fact, if you follow Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, and the only reason that I refer to him a lot is he's considered the Oracle of Omaha, and I don't think anyone who's ever invested $1 in stock hasn't heard about Berkshire Hathaway and that gigantic share price and what he's been able to do to create value. And what he says is the real measure that you should look at is the return, the shareholder return. So total return on shareholder investment. And the way that's calculated is dividends plus the change in the stock price divided by the market value at the beginning of the period. So in this case, market value at 1/1 of 97 was $269.75. We distributed $520 over the year in dividends. This was the change in the stock price. So if you back that number up into the next one, we have 27.8% return. How should the shareholders feel about that? Pretty good, right? Man, you guys are so easy. I led you right into that one. These are the comparative market returns for our peer group over the same period. We returned 27.8%. The only problem was our peer group returned almost 41% to their shareholders, and that, based on that formula we just saw, they went up 41%. We went up 28%. You all remember we had some problems during that period. We were still shaken out of. There were a lot